Okay, hello guys. This is Lauren Barber with Peace at Home Family Shelter, and this is part two of the domestic violence training for medical professionals. In the first part, we just kind of gave a general overview of domestic violence, and we said that Peace at Home specifically serves victims of intimate partner violence. In this part, we're going to talk specifically about the dynamics of abuse and what an abusive relationship can look like. There can be physical abuse, sexual abuse, that's commonly what we think of, emotional and psychological abuse, which kind of ties into verbal abuse. There's digital abuse, financial abuse, and stalking. And these aren't separate, clear-cut abuses. Really, they can all like blend together and blur together. But it's helpful sometimes to kind of put a label to different phenomenons that occur in abusive relationships because it helps us understand them. And it helps us kind of see the red flags for other people if we understand the different ways an abusive person can assert power and control over their partner. Okay. So there's physical abuse, which is pretty self-explanatory. It's when an abusive partner harms their partner, and that might be with their hands, it might be pushing them against the wall, kicking, it could be choking, strangling, using weapons, it can be tied in here is also threatening to kill their partner, kill their partner's family, children, animals, forcing their partner to use substances or different things like that, trapping their partner in the home. And it's also like forced like neglect, so like preventing their partner from sleeping, from eating, from obtaining necessary medical treatment or medication, things like that. It has to do with the partner's physical safety. That kind of ties into sexual abuse, which is also pretty self-explanatory, forcing, a partner to have sex with you. And a really big, like a widely held belief among abusive partners is they think, if they're married to their partner, that they have the right to sex with them at any time that they want, which is not true. In each instance, there needs to be consent from both people. In marriage or like a long-term relationship, that's not just like a standing agreement that both partners can have sex anytime they want. So it has to be a mutual agreement. So yes, and then refusing to use protection or sabotaging birth control, forcing partner to dress in a certain way, insulting partner in sexual ways, and intentionally giving a partner an STI or STD without disclosing that to the partner first. There's also emotional abuse, which is very much abuse too. And I have read on domestic violence awareness websites certain things that survivors have said about the emotional abuse that they experienced. And they said even though, the physical abuse was painful and scary, etc., it was the emotional abuse that really caused them to suffer the most because, every day their abusive partner was telling them they weren't worth anything, that no one else would love them, that they, are ugly or worthless, all of these things. And so over time, the daily comments and things like that really start to wear on you, and you start to believe it, and you don't feel empowered, you don't feel like you're capable of leaving that person. And it can make you more dependent and reliant on that person especially if that person, the abusive partner, successfully isolates you, which a lot of times abusive partners will try to do that. They'll try to make you dependent on them for their affirmation, for, your needs. And then they can try to, what is the word? Strategically, like cut off your friends and family members and things like that. And so that you'll be, fully reliant on them, and that you'll stay with them. So yes, the emotional abuse. And this can tie into gaslighting, which is a form of emotional or psychological abuse. It's a way of communicating in which one person can try to control the other person, make them feel insane, make them feel like things that happened didn't actually happen, make them feel like they're, remembering things incorrectly, that they're crazy and things like that. And so if, someone is treating you like this every day and constantly gaslighting you and making you feel like, you don't understand reality, that can make you question yourself, that can make you question your sanity. And that's a really confusing and scary place, especially for someone who needs to leave their abusive partner. You know, gaslighting and verbal abuse and emotional abuse, it can convince a victim of domestic violence that, that they're being dramatic, that no one will believe them, things like that. So abusive partners really try to control their partner's mental state. And then this is verbal abuse, which is tied into all that I just said. Here are just specific examples from actual survivors of domestic violence. This is what their partners have said to them. So some examples: you're too sensitive. I don't remember doing that. That is an example of gaslighting. If the abusive partner did do something and then they say, I don't remember doing that, or I didn't do that, then they'll make you, question your perception of those events and make you feel crazy. Here's another one that we talked about with sexual abuse. It's not rape if you're my wife, things like that. And then other examples I have, other examples here are: you deserve it, you're cheating on me, if you leave me, I'll kill you, if you leave me, I'll kill your family, you're a blank. You can fill in any bad word that you can think of. Some abusive people can say, why do you make me hurt you? Why did you make me do that? No one's going to believe you. You're crazy. You're dramatic. And an important point is, another thing abusers say is, I'm sorry and I love you and it'll never happen again, which oftentimes, most of the time, is the absolute biggest lie. And that's another form of emotional abuse, because it's not true. It's absolute, manipulation. And this can be a cycle. And we'll talk about that in a bit. So this is digital abuse. And it's not really another form of abuse. It's really like emotional abuse, stalking. It's all different kinds of things, but through the medium of technology. So just using, phones and social media and things like that to achieve the same things. So an example would be an abusive partner having access to all their partner's social medias, having all their passwords, checking their call history and their texts, things like that. Just like kind of over monitoring their partner's behaviors and who they're talking to. And this is a really dangerous kind of zone, because this is when the victim of domestic violence can kind of feel like they're starting to lose their autonomy and that they can't make their own choices. And they may feel like their abuser, can find out anything that they do. This might make them scared to reach out for help. Because if they call, for example, Peace at Home, or go on our website or something like that, they might be afraid that their partner will see their history, or their partner, constantly looking over their shoulders, seeing what they're doing. And so this is a really big deal and can make people feel really stuck. But another point on this is, okay, my cats are in the background. Hope you guys like cats. Oh my gosh, I'm not gonna start over this video. Okay. Okay. So on Peace at Home's website, and a lot of domestic violence websites, there's this option to X out immediately, like a safety exit, I believe it's called. So if you go on Peace at Home's website, you can press this little X if you need to. Like if, your abusive partner is walking by, you can press the little X. It will close out of the tab and it will clear your history, and it will like open up a new like general tab that says like google.com or something like that. So it completely wipes every trace that you were like looking at a domestic violence website. And so that's really helpful. Also, with Peace at Home, our advocates can meet survivors of domestic violence. They can, for people who are trying to escape their abusive relationships, our advocates can meet them like in a discreet place, like a library or something like that, so that nothing is suspicious. The victim or survivor can come home with a book, and that's proof that they're at the library. Their location would say the library, but really they would be meeting with one of our advocates and planning, making a safety plan and planning to receive our services and leave their partner. So that is a good thing to know. Okay, financial abuse is it's really oftentimes when an abusive partner kind of gatekeeps the money. This might be kind of in disguise as the abusive partner might want to be the breadwinner, so that they can control all the money, and then their partner would be reliant on them. And then sometimes you see, partners, they share a car. Maybe sometimes like the wife, for example, may stay home with the kids and doesn't have a job, and then the husband like makes all the money, and then he gets to make all the decisions for what they buy and whatever. And so if the partner's staying at home with the kids, the one who doesn't have the job, for example, if she doesn't have any money, how are they possibly supposed to leave? Because especially with children, you'd have to pay for, a hotel, or stay with a friend, which is, with children, that's so difficult to, couch surf with a friend or something like that. You don't know how long you'll be there. And so we at Peace at Home recognize that financial abuse is a really big part of abusive relationships. And we know that finances are a big barrier in trying to leave an abuser. So we have different programs that address that, and I'll talk about that later. And then lastly, stalking, which we kind of already talked about with, social media stalking, over monitoring a partner's like devices and things like that, but also physically stalking someone, following them around physically, breaking into their house after you've separated or something like that. And so this is kind of a way abusive people can kind of keep fear instilled in the partner. And it's kind of a message of like, hey, like you didn't know I was here, but I was here, and I can, I know where you are. I can break in anytime. The point is to intimidate the other person. Okay, and then lastly for this part, so this is a paper from one of Peace at Home's, again, the cats, so sorry. This is from one of Peace at Home's support groups, and they kind of listed reasons why they stayed with their partner for so long. So some survivors said that they stayed for the kids. So, for example, if their partner was the breadwinner, something like that, if maybe they thought, well, my kids need a mom and a dad, or my kids need two parents, my kids need that stability. I don't want to, move them and create a traumatic experience for them where they have to change schools and like things like that, and they won't be able to see their other parent. So that may have been a reason why they stayed. Other examples on this list, they may have just thought it was normal. They may not have recognized that what was going on with them was domestic violence or was abuse. They may have stayed for religious reasons. If both partners, attended the same church, the victim may have been very scared to separate from their partner and kind of I'm so sorry. Yeah, they may have been just scared of what people at the church thought, especially if, that specific church did not believe that that God, approved of divorce. Let's see. Oh, and another one, the victim of in the abusive relationship may have genuinely loved and cared for the abusive partner and hoped that they would change. And it may have been years of that not being the case, of the abusive person not changing. And so that brings us to this slide, why the survivors eventually left their abusive relationships. And you'll see on this list, the very top point is the kids. So another rationalization that a victim of domestic violence might have is, this is not good for my kids, for them to see my partner abusing me, or for them to be around this yelling, or if the partner also abused the children. So eventually, they left and rationalized that, like, this is not good for my children. Let's see. Yeah, the survivor may have just noticed this abuse is getting worse, and I think I have no choice but to leave. They may have eventually left because they realized the situation they were actually in, and someone, may have told them about peace at home, or something might have clicked for them that, like, whoa, like, there are options. I don't have to be in this situation. And there are just so many obstacles and so many barriers for a lot of people, especially with people who are experiencing domestic violence, but also experiencing poverty. There are so many more barriers for them. And so it is really brave for a person experiencing domestic violence to call, an organization like us and be vulnerable and ask for help. So we're glad that people do that every week, every day for us. And so yes, another thing is, these survivors said that they're tired of walking on eggshells, and they're just tired in general. Okay, and then this is the end of this part, part 2. So part 3, I'll see you there.